This week on the Final Dump, we are recapping another crappy Green Bay Packers game, a second straight loss for the first time in the Matt LaFleur era. What is going on? What's it going to take to fix it? And will the elixir for this team be the Washington Commanders? We'll talk about it coming up this hour on the Final Dump.
News dump.
News dump, yay!
News dump.
I mean, that's kind of a loaded question.
It's a landslide!
It's the Final Dump, presented by Game On Wisconsin. And welcome to the NFL Week 7 edition of the Final Dump. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He is Matt Freilich. We're here with you for the next hour. Another crappy week for the Green Bay Packers. Thought it was deflating enough to lose to the Giants in London, and then they come back home. They decide not to take the bye week after the London trip. They decide, no, we'll just stick with our game against the Jets instead. I'm sure that'll be fine. And then they got punched in the mouth for a full 60 minutes, and they end up losing. The Packers are now 3-3 on the year. And if you didn't actually watch any of the games this season and only paid attention to the internet, you'd think the season was over. Now, things are grim. There are some positives. We will try to bring some of those to light over the course of the next hour. But, Matt, I got to be honest with you. I think this week was more deflating than last. I mean, the Giants are probably not good, but they play their asses off every single game. This Jets team, again, I don't know if they're good. They're not awful. They're not the Jets of the recent past. But this was a team the Packers, in theory, should have beaten. And to come out and just lay an egg after another egg after another egg all game long on Sunday, it's deflating, it's depressing, and I don't want to go as far as to say pathetic because these are paid professionals and we're not at playing football, but it didn't feel like the team we have come to know really during the Matt LaFleur era. And frankly, for decades before this, save for 1 to 2 years of the Mike McCarthy era.
Yeah, give credit to the Giants and the Jets, right? They've been an absolute dumpster fire of organizations for a while. Obviously, both within my lifetime have had some success, but when you're the Jets and your success is getting a washed-up Brett Favre or even a Mark Sanchez that leads you to an AFC Championship game, it's tough. Like, that's just a tough look. And it's like, yeah, those are better football teams than we've seen in Matt LaFleur's time, obviously with the Packers, with most of Rodgers' time with the Packers. So you can't take those lightly. And it was a little more deflating. I think all the glitz and the glamour and the everything that went along with going over to London and the first time, and it was a little bit easier to stomach. I felt like just because it was such a okay, this is an outlier. You're going to London, you got all these distractions or whatever. Let's give kudos to Martindale. I feel like I did that all week trying to cover up my tracks and getting myself built up to the fact that okay, we can beat the Jets playing really super solid at home, and that just wasn't the case. Truly, punched in the mouth from the beginning. There's so many things I want to get to about just what I saw yesterday that I feel like are just. I haven't come to expect this from a Matt LaFleur team or even a Packers team. It's crazy. I mean, to finally get back-to-back losses is one thing, but in the fashion that you've done it's holy shit. At least you were in contention of either of those games. That wasn't the case either. So a ton to unpack. I know we'll try to get through most of it in this hour. Other people have probably done it for us. I don't think we'll be reacting to Robbie Anderson being traded or, maybe DJ Moore coming in, Odell Beckham, because at this point, I don't think that matters all that much. That's kind of where I fall on the receiver hoopla of the Twitter sphere. But at the end of the day, there's a lot to unpack. That's just the only way to put it because there's been so much bad.
Well, let's get right to it then. And we'll get to Aaron Rodgers in particular because there's a lot. You want to talk about a lot to unpack, a lot there. We'll get to the offensive line and whatever the hell that group is doing. Some talk about the defense as well. They looked better, but is that more they made the adjustments or were the Jets just not good offensively? And of course, we'll look ahead to the Commanders game coming up this Sunday with significant to some. I put down in our notes, Matt, that we were going to call this segment, When Does It Get Better? Which makes me sound like I just painted my nails black and locked myself in the room and I'm listening to My Chemical Romance circa 2004. That's what that sounds like. But it's a serious question. We're 6 weeks in, which isn't a massive amount. We're just over a third of the way into the season. Technically, 18 weeks, you get a bye, sure. We're a third of the way into the season. We had the clunker week 1. Okay. That's apparently a thing with Matt LaFleur. All right, whatever, you move on. You beat the Bears. You don't look all that great in the second half, but you still beat them. Okay, they're getting back into it. You pick up a couple more wins, 3-1. All right, a lot of things that need to be worked out, but here we go. And then the second half against the Giants happens, and all of a sudden, every good vibe hits a wall, falls apart, and we're thinking, okay, something is wrong. Hopefully the Jets are the get-right game. And you and I were sort of on this right wavelength going into this game that the Jets should probably cover a 7.5-point spread. Still think the Packers will win. They're the better team, but it's probably going to be relatively close. And then the offense comes out and is just dirty brown water trash. I mean, it is an absolute nightmare for this offense right now. And I don't know what the cure-all is going to be for this group, because it's not as if it's one huge fatal flaw at this moment, right? And I think some people might disagree. And again, we'll get to Aaron Rodgers later, because I think there's a loud contingent of people who put too much blame on him or maybe don't put enough blame on him. So we'll get to that in particular soon. But I don't feel like there's this one big fatal flaw that's keeping the Packers from being successful. It feels like just a chain of events, a series of smaller things that if they start to click, this offense will be there. Some of the deep shots, Zach Cruz from the Packers Wire was writing about this last week. Some of the vertical stuff the Packers have been running, it actually has a chance. It's just somebody is slightly off on a route or Rodgers slightly misses a throw. It falls apart. Some of the play calling, sometimes it hits, but there aren't enough chained together successes in a row to make you feel like there's any sort of rhythm with this team. It's just little things here and there, which on one hand, it feels, again, this is just my opinion, but it feels like, okay, these things are fixable. You string a few together, you're going to be in good shape. On the other hand, it just feels like it's one thing after another. It's like you're dodging darts being launched at you. Like, oh, it's one thing over here. Oh, it's another thing over here. I don't know where it ends, and I don't know what it's going to take for this offense in particular to start turning things around at this juncture of the season.
It's wild. I feel like last year, in the last few years, it's been either offensive line play, some of that from injury, a lot of special teams. I mean, there were multiple games that were truly blown by special teams. But now it's like you said, that's what it kind of feels like, the darts. It feels like you're playing jarts in the yard and you're just throwing them up and you're like, man, I hope that really doesn't hit me, because I'm going to have to move here and it's going to be the next one that's coming down too. So I think the frustrating part for me is that there's so many expectations of things that just are like the standard for the Packers. And this is really what I kind of wanted to hit home on today, was just like the offensive line play should be a consistent piece of this team. Like the amount of draft picks they put into it, how much they talk about getting the best 5 out there, like that, seeing how physically just overpowered some of our better guys were yesterday was wild. I think the defense has yet to show up in any sort of impactful way. It's not, we see all these other defenses in the NFL and they're a lot more sexy than the Packers have, but I think they definitely have similar skill set, if not higher caliber players across the board in every position group. So I've never played that game. That seems a little dangerous to me, Iowa Joe. So I just think, like, just to not see the defense show up, you think the running game, it's like that should be where consistency always lies. Somehow that didn't come back to any normality this week, which it just seemed like always consistent. Like Matt LaFleur loses a game or the Packers don't run the ball enough. It's just like an instant, like 180 the other way. They fix it. And then like Rodgers play, like you talked about, a lot of stuff they've been missing deep. They try to run that trips concept, or they have like the inside receiver run the fade route. He just misses Dobbs, I believe it was, on that throw. Like, just some small tweaks here and there, but ultimately, like on the passing game, I don't know if those small tweaks even really get us over the hump, because there's still a lot to be sought after on multiple facets of the field. Like, you think I could tell on the special teams unit from our standpoint of rushing, and I'm like, they're getting a good push up the middle, and they finally got it on the third one, which was great. But then it's like, oh, we get a field goal block, we get a block punt for a touchdown. It's like, well, cool. We have nothing to write home about anymore on special teams, even though it was a great play. I don't remember the last time the Packers had blocked a punt. So I just feel like every facet of the game, coaching even, like there's just so many things that you just want to point at and blame for them. And I think there are aspects that need to be put under scrutiny and under a microscope. But I don't know what those, if we boiled it down to a few items, even just like 2 or 3, I don't even know what those are, because I even just mentioned 5 and I could get behind every single one of them.
I think for me, you bring up coaching and that there's issues there too. I think it's important to remember that coaches coach and the players play. And Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's. You can throw out whatever cliche or idiom you want. It does come down to the players executing what is in front of them. But I do think part of this, or a large part of this, falls on coaching too. And it's not just Matt LaFleur, it's the entire coaching staff, but not even just in the play calling sense. Because I think that's what most of us point to, that why aren't we running the ball more? Why are we going so heavy with the RPOs? Why is there so much vertical stuff? Where are the intermediate, the underneath, the dig, whatever? Where is that stuff? I think that's what is easy to point to because it's what we all see. The word that keeps popping up to me, I put this in a tweet I had on Sunday, and then I was going to write about this sometime this week too, is that it was such a big deal when McCarthy left and this regime took over. The concept of accountability. Do you remember the story about the meetings in Green Bay toward the end of the McCarthy years where dudes weren't paying attention? Someone skipped a meeting for a massage. I want to say it was Tyler Dunn who wrote that. The whole big expose about how the relationship between Rodgers and McCarthy fell apart. It was all about accountability, and people have to be held accountable. And that was a big deal when this LaFleur regime first took over back in 2019. Where is that now? And I'm not trying to say that I know exactly what is going on inside those walls. And I know what Matt LaFleur is telling his fellow coaches, or he is telling his players or whatever on any given day or after any given game. I do not know. This is just my perspective from the outside. But when you get examples of your quarterback saying, we need to simplify the offense, and then you on Monday say, well, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. That's not okay. Like, that is a problem that you have. And it's not just Aaron Rodgers. And again, we'll touch on QB1 here in a second. But look at some of the other areas of this field. We'll talk about the offensive line more in depth here in a moment as well. But there is so much evidence that Royce Newman cannot do his job, that he is not cut out to serve the job of starting right guard for the Green Bay Packers. He's just not cut out for it. So where is the adjustment? Where is the change? Why are you being so stubborn as to just keep hammering this home? I don't know if it's Stenavich who wants that. I don't know if it's the rest of the coaching staff on the offensive line. I don't know if it's LaFleur. I do not know. But somebody's got to do something to say, hey, I'm going to light a fire under your ass because you're not getting your job done. You have to be understanding of the fact that your Super Bowl window is tiny right now, because no Super Bowl window is ever that big. But right now, when you've got a Hall of Fame quarterback who, even if he is maybe hitting a decline, is still better than most other options in the NFL. Like, yeah, I'd take a Mahomes or an Allen right now, but I might not take many other guys, even with the struggle so far early this season, just speaking in a broad sense. You've got to be able to say, hey, Aaron, tough shit. Like, this is the offense we're running, so operate within the confines of it. Look what happened in 2020 when we were the best offense in the league. Look at 2021 where we were the number one seed in the NFC, everything that worked. You've got to hold your coaches to that. We've talked about it before, Matt. The comments at press conferences during the week about, yeah, we want to get more aggressive on defense. We want to do this. Well, then make sure it happens. And again, this is not just about Matt LaFleur. This is a player thing too. Players are supposed to hold themselves accountable, hold each other accountable. It just doesn't feel like there is much of that. And I need to hammer it home. I've already said it a few times so far. I'm an outsider. I am just a fan with a microphone and a decent internet speed. Like, that's not any sort of inside information. I don't know what Matt LaFleur and the other coaches are telling each other or the players are telling each other. But based on what we have seen on TV through the first 6 weeks of the season, or we hear in the press conferences, or we hear from the beat reporters and the beat core, it just doesn't feel like that's there. So I'm with you. There was talk about wide receivers and, oh, well, the Panthers go for a fire sale. What about DJ Moore? And then Robbie Anderson gets traded to Arizona. My whole Twitter timeline on Monday, Jesus, was just people. Oh, wow. Good for Arizona. That's what it's like to add a player. Robbie Anderson is an okay wide receiver 3 with a career-long bad attitude. What does that do for the Green Bay Packers in 2022? Well, can you tell me, and I'm not you, Matt, obviously, but can someone who's fired up about that tell me what Robbie Anderson does for the 2022 Green Bay Packers? Nothing. He doesn't do a damn thing. He's no better than, rookie Romeo Doubs, and he's certainly not better than Alan Lazard, who, quiet as it's kept, has been actually very good, I think, for the most part so far this season. Who is going to turn this around with the group they have right now? If you could get a DJ Moore or a receiver of that caliber, sure. Yeah, great. That's a guy who can actually change a game. Not some nobody. You don't just make a trade to make a trade when you're in the middle of a Super Bowl window. So I'm not looking to the outside to fix this. I think people in the building, in Lambeau Field, in the team offices needs to say, this is wrong. We are going to make sure we get it right. And if you're not going to hold up your end of the bargain, I'm going to get after you for that.
One of my favorite things to do now that we record on Mondays is to kind of just digest some of the people that are a little bit smarter brains than you and I in the Packers world. Like you said, like, dude, I have a $60 microphone and I've added some lights into this room, and we just shoot the breeze, whether it be on Pack-A-Day or Final Dump, via Game on Wisconsin or whatever. But one of my favorite things to do is like listen to some people that I feel like know a little bit more than me. And it's usually Aaron Nagler. It's usually Andy Herman. Any pieces that come out. Zach Cruz had a pretty short and sweet one today, but just try to really digest like what I saw from either. Generally, it's the bad. Like, how are they going to help me like see stuff I didn't see, validate some opinions I've had. But the big one that really stuck out to me is what Andy said today, and he was ranting on the Pack-A-Day video episode on YouTube. But one of the things that stuck out is just like, who's going to be the person to light a fire up under any of these guys? You saw LaFleur try to do it, I was shocked. I was watching with one of my good friends that I've watched many Packer games with. I'm like, can you ever remember LaFleur ever doing this? He's like, if he did it, they never show it on TV. I'm like, well, they sure as hell would show it on TV if he did. So I'm going to assume this is the first time he's ever jacked the team up like this. And it's probably long overdue. 0-0 ball game. And they responded with literally doing nothing better than what they had been doing, which is alarming. But like, there's so many players on this team that could be that guy. It could be Aaron Rodgers. It could be an Adrian Amos. It could be a Kenny Clark, a Preston Smith, a David Bakhtiari. Like, they have enough veterans. I mean, Big Dog, for God's sakes. Like, yep. I can only imagine the preaching that man could do in front of an entire squad. But like, they just don't have that. They don't have that intensity for some reason. I don't know who that last piece was, like, and that they got rid of. And like, the first one that comes to mind is Charles Woodson. Well, that's damn near a decade ago. That doesn't apply anymore. So like, who is that person that's going to jack someone up? I don't know, man. Like, they're just not holding themselves up to a standard they need to be. And I feel like we hear these same things from Matt LaFleur and from Rodgers and just stuff like, it's like, it sounds great, but then when you ask them about it, like you said, like, simplifying the offense, well, I don't really know what that means. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, that's something you literally have said. Like, that's what you should do. And like, I don't know why, for some reason, Aaron, it seems like a trust thing with the offense. I don't know why he doesn't trust to run the ball more. I get it. Yesterday is unfortunate. Like, just getting pressed the way you did, like up the middle, it's easy not to trust it because you're going to get killed and not want to run the ball and check out of stuff when they're giving you certain looks. But like, you gotta kind of just gotta run with the flow. It's a slow burning offense, man. This isn't 2020, Nathaniel Hackett, Gold Zone, doing all the fun stuff that they were doing. It's not there anymore. He's not here anymore. Senovich is the OC. Like, there's certain things that have changed throughout this team that have brought the explosiveness down, whether it be personnel, whether it be youthfulness of Aaron Rodgers' arm, whether it be the coaching staff. Like, it's just not the same offense. You can't think you can just check out of everything and just sling it deep all the time. Just not where things need to be. I don't know what's I don't know what needs to change, but it seems really tough to all of a sudden see some guys like jacking each other up and be vocal. And even the LaFleur thing kind of seems strange to me. He would do that. I do think a lot of this is just like Pandora's out of the box. I talked about it with the guys I was watching the game with yesterday. I feel like Matt LaFleur is such a player's coach. Like, the thing that sticks out to me all the time is that the players being, refreshed, they can stay in their own homes or their own bed on a home game. Like, that's usually not the case. You have to go to a different, hotel. I just feel like Matt LaFleur is such a player's coach and such a fun dude. Like, it's tough for him to really be an asshole from time to time. And especially when you have someone that's like Aaron Rodgers, where he kind of is a player's coach already, it's tough to like take the reins from that if it's not working in what he's trying to do as well. So it's complicated, man. It's just a ball of wax, and it sucks. I don't know what to do with it.
Well, let's just dive right in then further, Matt, with the Aaron Rodgers situation. And there are so many different angles to attack this from, and so many different points that should be brought up or need to be brought up. And One that comes up, and it ties into what you were just talking about with the different stuff near the red zone and some of the different play calling. Our guy David on the Game on Wisconsin YouTube comments, and appreciate everyone who's chiming in so far during the show, says, Rodgers has said himself he doesn't like these plays with motion. And I think it's maybe not 100% accurate, but you could assume potentially that the comment after the game about simplify the offense was about taking some of that out. I mean, he has said that before. He said it when this offense was first implemented back in 2019 and into 2020. He didn't like a lot of that stuff. When he guested on Pardon My Take to start the NFL season, he mentioned how he did not like that stuff, and he and LaFleur have had to kind of get used to working on that stuff together and putting the playbook together the way it is. Part of me wants to say, look, Aaron, I know you're a Hall of Famer, but figure it out. Like, the offense is not perfect by any means. And I've had my own gripes with what Matt LaFleur has done from his head coaching and play calling perspective this year. But it's on you to be collaborative with this as well. It is not just your show. Matt, you said it last week, and I think this is a great way to phrase it. And I think it's the way a lot of people, and I know certainly myself, are thinking about this. Aaron, you are not always the smartest guy in the room. There are other people who have great ideas that are worth using, and sometimes may even have a better idea than the one you have. And I'm not trying to say that Aaron Rodgers is an idiot. I'm not trying to say that you don't know what you're doing. The game's passed you by. I'm not trying to say that, but I think it is fair to say, look at what has worked in the past and look at what's going on right now. What's going on right now is not working. What worked in the past, could we see more of that? Would it be worth a try? I know the offense is totally different because previously so much of the offense was built around the matchups with Devontae Adams. And we spoke about that at length last week when we were talking about this offense and its struggles. But figure it out. You've got pieces that can make this work. And I don't even think it's about the quote unquote trust thing anymore, at least with some of these guys. Bob Tonyan is back. He had a really nice game against the Jets. He was mostly that safety valve throw over the middle, but he was a legitimate option and had a pretty nice game. One of his best games, maybe his best since coming back from the injury to start the season. The trust is there with Romeo Doubs. It is clearly there. And with Watson hurt, that's the only young guy you've got to worry about right now. You know you can trust Aaron Jones. You absolutely know you can trust Allen Lazard, who, again, because the offense has been bad overall, I think we've overlooked the fact, I at least think he has played really well so far this season. I don't know what the problem is, though. I don't know if it's physical. Obviously, his thumb was bothering him. There's no way he lost a ball pulling back on his arm in the first quarter on Sunday and then it just pop out and he's totally fine with his thumb. Something is obviously wrong there, and hopefully it's going to get better. LaFleur said on Monday it is improving, so hopefully that's true. I just don't know if it's physical. I don't know if it's mental. I don't know if he's trying to do too much or if he's trying to sabotage what the offense looks like. I have no idea, and I don't want to assume malice, Matt, but at some point, the receivers, yes, you have to make catches. And they had, I think Fox said 5 drops in the game on Sunday. At some point, yes, your offensive line needs to block better for you, and we'll touch on them in a moment. But at the same time, you are going to the Hall of Fame and you will be in on the first ballot, and you are considered one of the greatest throwers of all time. So figure it out, because right now your struggles are hurting this team in a massive way. And I trust that they can get it done, but I don't know what it's going to take to actually get there.
I don't know either. And that's kind of what I like, how I left it and pushed it back on you. I'm like, I don't know who that player, that catalyst is, because Aaron's really not going to change up how he operates, I don't think. I don't think he's going to be one to have a players meeting or a closed door meeting, and I don't think that's his demeanor or anything that, from what I've come to learn about him in the last couple of years, is just like, that's just not how he operates. That motion thing, I saw the comments, which I appreciated from, I don't know who was that, David. Like, I understand Rodgers doesn't like motion plays, but like, dude, that's part of the NFL. It's like going to get you leverage. You get a guy in motion. You don't have super fast guys that can win off the line of scrimmage anymore. You have to take any angle you possibly can to get outside or inside leverage, or just get the get the defense's eyes moving in a different direction that they're not anticipating, like just some sort of misdirection. So I don't know when this is going to occur, because it's going to obviously occurs with every quarterback. I think we're seeing it a little bit right now with Tom Brady, or at least the last couple of years with his arm strength. We saw it drastically with Drew Brees. All of a sudden, he just didn't have it anymore. Like, when do you get to the point where you can't sling the ball downfield? And I don't think that's it, right? It's just still something to consider because that throw he had yesterday to Lazard was just stupid. Like, they show that, I'm like, dude, there's just no. I was just floored when they take the camera and they go from behind the line of scrimmage, behind Rodgers' back, and you just see like he's like almost falling away, throwing it 45 yards downfield into a bucket. It's like you still got the accuracy and stuff. I just don't know if it's a physical thing. Like, is it the strength? Is it just trusting you get a ball through a window? Like, I don't know what it is that way. The thumb, I think, definitely had something to do with it. He's been taking a lot of shots this year too, and I think he tends to be one that lays on the ground a little bit more, and kind of it seems like he kind of gets up a little bit gingerly more often than most guys, but he has been taking some shots, and especially yesterday. But like you said, I don't know what it's going to be to turn it. I think ultimately, though, it kind of comes down to Rodgers. Like, he's the one with all the power in this offense. He has the most pull out of anyone basically in the whole organization, like, especially in the way that offenses ran. Like, you got to just like you said, though, like, he's got trust within Dobbs at this point. Lazard, Tunyon, Cobb looks like he missed significant injury, which is great. Like, the pieces are there. There's nothing to write home about, but it's still an adequate amount of guys that we've seen thus far. Have they made mistakes? Sure, but that's just like timing stuff. We've seen even in infancy parts of the season. We've seen this before with like receivers he's had tons of chemistry with. So it doesn't really like that part. I think will get better from some standpoint, but it's just something just seems completely off. And I don't know if it's the offensive line. I don't know if it's just all the pieces coming together, or if it's not. I think a lot of it does really have to do, like, it's just such a weird thing to have to like establish the run and rely on it and rely on it and rely on it and use it to set up stuff and use it to set up jet sweeps and play actions, because the Packers operate super, super well off play action. Aaron Rodgers does himself, especially when he likes to run. That didn't happen yesterday, but I just think there needs to be, it's just an ideology. It's an ideology, like, switch up. Like in 2020, like they were able to sling the ball and still somewhat run to it. 2021, I feel like Aaron Jones had some massive games, but they still like would run the ball when it made sense. Like, oh, we're gonna run the clock out. It's third quarter. We're up by 2 scores, and like now it's this, or well, you don't have the option to make a deep shot right away. Now you really have to rely on the run game sooner. Like, you have to establish it from the first kick, and it's just a different mix-up. It's some of the same players that are back there and progressing, but it's just a little bit different dynamic now that you really like truly this has to be how our offenses ran, not, hey, it's convenient when we can run the ball and we can look like a ground and pound team, even though 12 just wants to sling the damn pill.
I have one screenshot I want to bring up here because I think it really encapsulates Rodgers trying to either just do too much to make up for some other offensive deficiencies, or just doing what he wants to do instead of sometimes taking the safe or smart play. Matt Schneiderman from The Athletic tweeted this out, and I saw the clip. I didn't even focus in on this screenshot when I said, yes, exactly this, because I jumped off my couch and screamed when this happened. Rodgers has nobody near him. There's a defender that's about 10-ish yards, maybe a little less than 10 yards to his left. There's another defensive back who's down the field with a receiver. Rodgers, instead of just taking off, running and sliding and gaining, I don't know, anywhere between 5 and 8 yards probably before he has to go down, throws it back across his body looking for a covered up Romeo Dobbs. The ball falls incomplete. Matt, I'm not kidding. I got up off my couch and I was screaming, and I told my wife, who was sitting there next to me, like, run with the ball. Take it. Go run with it. I know you're older. I know you don't like to take hits. If you go a quarter of a way into your slide and someone lays a finger on you, you're getting 15 yards. Like, go do that. That's the smart thing. And I just feel like that's not here. It's all about make a play. Sometimes making the play is just doing the safe thing, the smart thing. And I don't know why this offense just refuses to do it. And I don't want to just put it all on Rodgers. Some folks might. You know me, I'm more middle of the road guy usually. I'm not going to put it entirely on him, but I feel like, man, come on. You've got to do the smart things sometimes. Taking 6 yards on 1st and 10 instead of 2nd and 4 is smart. You've got 2 more plays on 2nd and 3rd down with the entire playbook open. So why not take advantage of that? It's not
only does it seem smart, it seems simplistic, doesn't it?
Yes.
Just to simply just run and take what's there for you. Like that play, holy shit. Like, normally if like any college or any, college football or high school football or NFL. Like I see that a guy doesn't make you're like, okay, like I hope you're going to complete the ball though. Like you can throw the ball. I'm okay with that. But like, it better be either further than you would have gotten or at least completed. And like the fact that he didn't just go take it 2nd and 5, slide, get up to like, that's it. Like maybe that's what you need. Just get a little slide. But like, dude, just to not want to do that was unbelievable. That blew my mind.
And to be talking to about, and not demanding that a trade get made or something, but to kind of be schmoozing and doing some table talk and saying, yeah, if someone comes available on the trade market, yada, yada. Dude, if you can add a true game changer, okay, great. But you've got guys who can play. Like, give them a chance. Give your offense more of a chance than I think you're giving it right now. But to that end, and you brought up the offensive line earlier, I do think it is important to get to them. It was not all on Rodgers in this game. He did not play well. I think that's fair to say. He had a bad game. He's had a few bad games through the first 6 weeks of the season. This is the worst I have seen the offensive line in quite some time. And you give credit to Quinnen Williams because Quinnen Williams looked awesome in this game. You had a few different guys on that Jets defense that played really well, and credit to Bob Saleh for putting together a great defensive game plan. Mm-hmm. But what the hell is it going to take to get Royce Newman off the field? Dude, I don't get it. I'm going into full panicky fan mode here, but I really don't understand. We have so much empirical evidence that it is not working and that your soon-to-be 39-year-old quarterback is getting crushed out there and taking these hits and getting up a little slowly, even if he's hot dogging it a little bit. That's not good. Bakhtiari has played mostly well since coming back. Big E has been pretty mediocre at right tackle, and maybe it doesn't work if you move him back to right guard. Maybe he's just really coming along slowly from return from the injury. But why not try? It cannot be worse than Royce Newman whiffing on stunt after stunt after stunt. It was called out by Greg Olsen on the broadcast. They just kept running the same TE stunt over and over, and Newman kept guessing wrong and getting blown by. At what point do you say we need to make a change here? I'm at a point where I don't even really care exactly what it's going to look like. Sounds like it very well could just be Jake Hansen moving to right guard, which, I mean, God help us. You could move Big E inside to guard, play Yash at right tackle. You could put Zach Tom at right tackle. Hell, put Zach Tom at right guard. He can do that too. That's why you drafted the guy. I just don't understand. And that's always something, sports or not, I hate when there's things that I should be able to understand that I just can't. And this is one thing, when you see week after week after week that your second year player is just getting his ass kicked over and over, why not say, let's try something else? Because even if it's still bad, well, A, you're no worse off, and B, at least you gave it an effort. I'm not saying it isn't effort, because again, I don't know what they're saying in-house, but it feels like there's a lack of effort in trying when you just keep doing the same failed technique over failed technique week after week.
I love what you said about just like you're trying to understand, you just can't figure it out. And I feel like that's when I watch sports all the time, whether it's an NBA basketball game or whatever. I'm just like, what happened on this play? Did this guy tip the ball? Oh, this guy didn't expect this to happen. Like I always try to like break it down and like then it's always in the next play and you go on and you move past it. So and there's some things that I thought going this season were going to be just alarming. The defense figuring it out, I still felt like it wasn't fully there. There were some more pieces that were added. The receiving core, absolutely. That's going to take some time, Matt, in my head, just, talking to myself. Like, it's going to take some time to get there. Run game seems like it should be a thing that'll get worked out. Tight end, holy shit, what's going on with the tight end room? But the one thing that I thought was a consistent was going to be the offensive line. And, like, I think there was either multiple pieces of content I've put out that I said I'm the most confident in the offensive line because of these reasons. And at this point, I feel led astray, hoodwinked, bamboozled that the offensive line just isn't the best five out there. And it's clear and obvious. I think the first time that it was brought up was actually by you saying like, hey, maybe Zach Tom gets an opportunity. I'm like, I'm okay with that. I wouldn't be, and that was actually when we had injuries going on. Mm-hmm. So that was when Bakhtiari was banged up and Elton was banged out. So it's like, okay, well that actually would kind of make sense if we're going to throw him out there. Well, now it's to the point, it's like, we don't have any really injury excuses. David Bakhtiari played 69 snaps yesterday. Nice. Elton Jenkins still trying to come back. We don't know he's the tough one right now. I'm not going to go too far on Elton, but like, that's tough. Like, is he not getting as much? Is he not being as consistent because his partner over there, Royce Newman, can't pick up a stunt? Is he uncomfortable at the right tackle spot? Is he just coming back from injury a little bit slower than we want? I just, for the life of me, to see this offensive line struggle the way they did yesterday, it's so uncanny to what I've come to expect from the Packers, and especially the Packers the last couple of years, where they just constantly have guys that they're going to be able to plug and play, whether it's, a dude that goes down and you have to start a different guy in an NFC Championship game, or you got a Jared Valdir or some, goofball that you can throw in and just, it's going to work and it's going to be consistent. But yesterday was just glaring. Like, if we don't see a change this week, I don't know what Coach Butkus is looking at. Like, I truly don't. There's just the fact that Jake Hansen then though gets snaps that right guard is like, nope, he's still the guy. Like, he's still basically our number 6 interior. Exterior would be Nijman. But like you said though, Brendan, I'm good with anything. Like, if it's Zach Tom, cool. If it's Nijman being out there, great. If it's Elton still on the right tackle and we move in, whoever else, like, there has to be a change. There's just no way that you would think that you can continue to do what you've been doing on the offensive line this year with all the other guys you have. Like, why not try it out? I'm not super ecstatic from Jake Hansen. We got someone chiming in saying with the bicep injury, Iowa Joe, shout out, like, bicep injuries generally bad when they happen. Never is like they're a mild bicep injury. I think someone actually just missed one the other day they thought it was going to be severe, but it wasn't, or a pec, whatever. But like, I digress. I just don't think Jake Hansen's the answer at right guard. And if he is, great, but I haven't seen anything yet. There needs to be a change. Offensive line, I just don't know. It's just one of the things that I thought was going to be a for sure. Like, it's like, how is this not a solid piece? There's not that much movement here. We've had some of the same guys. We're coming back from injury. Everyone should be on the uptick. Elton got back sooner from his injury than I thought he would. David just finally establishing himself. We're not rotating him in and out anymore. It seems like he's going to be solid the rest of the way through, but holy shit, man. You got some guys in reserve that definitely could put a better effort than Royce Newman did. Like, I was never the biggest Royce Newman hater or seeing that he did things poorly, but yesterday was finally like, okay, it's all come to light because it's just constantly throughout this entire game, and he couldn't figure it out.
I think it really is a great crossroads or intersection of the points we were bringing up earlier about me saying, where is the accountability that used to be such a big deal for this team? And for you saying sometimes LaFleur can be too much of a player's coach. This feels like that example of, we're just going to keep saying, we've got faith in you. We've got faith in you. We've got faith in you. Don't worry. We believe in you, talking publicly about these guys. And then like, that's killing your team, man. That is bad for you. At some point, you can't just say, we believe in him. It's going to get worked out. We're going to be okay. At some point, you need people to play well. And right now, Royce Newman is not that. So I don't know if it's LaFleur trying to protect his feelings. I don't know if Stenavich just loves the guy for whatever. I have no idea. But you've got to figure out a way to get this offensive line to start meshing and to start playing well. And you bring up a good point, too. Maybe Elgton Jenkins is playing really badly, really badly is harsh, but playing worse than we would expect and worse than his high standard because he's not getting any help from his left side, from that right guard. I think that's certainly possible as well. Sometimes you have to be a hard ass as a coach or as a group of coaches. Go make something happen. Go try something. And we've had a couple people point out on the Game on Wisconsin YouTube comments that, yes, the Packers did make a waiver claim today for an offensive lineman who was waived by the Colts this week. Maybe there's questions about the depth. Maybe they saw something on tape they really liked. I don't know. I just want something. This is different to me than making a trade just to make a trade. Here you have a clear example of a player who's not working and a system and an idea that's not working. You've got to try something, because even if you don't get the exact results you want, there's no harm in at least trying something new. Frankly, this is the exact same thing as the Amari Rodgers debate, right? This is the exact same situation, that public faith, leave him out there, give him chances. Okay, don't worry about kick returns. You're just on punt returns over and over and over. Is he good? Is he good at it? I know we had some comments earlier that, hey, at least he got on the field offensively. Yeah, he did have a catch. He had one target for one catch. That's more than I expected for him the rest of the season after Rodgers pretty much said he was gone. So that's something, I guess. But it's just the same topics over and over that permeate all these different parts of the team. And apparently Bisaccia is the only guy who can maximize some of these players. Although, to be fair, he hasn't gotten all that much out of Amari Rodgers.
Were you shocked that Amari Rodgers was still just in his same Same. Yep. Get out there, Amari. Like, was that shocking to you? Because I was like, there's just no way. Like, I saw Nixon, I think, return or kneel down or whatever the kickoff. I'm like, okay, they're gonna go with Nixon. Not my favorite thing. I feel like there could be someone more sexy back there. And then all of a sudden I see Amari back there again. I'm like, holy shit! Like, they're just sticking with they're just sticking with it. Then nothing's changed.
I do want to really quickly, because I agree with you 100%. Like, but it's the same thing. Like, it's clearly not working. We've had, I think, 22 games of experience now knowing that experiment is not working, but we're probably going to get it again. We are probably going to see it again against Washington, because why would things change? And we'll get to expectations for this Washington game and significant to some here in just a moment. I did want to touch on the defense really quickly, though, Matt, because we did torch them a week ago because they did not play well against the Giants. I think for most of the game, I was pretty pleased with how the defense played. They gave up the touchdown on that end around to Braxton Berrios. Honest to God, I was not all that upset about that. Trick plays are hard to defend. You're put in a bad situation close to your own goal line after the turnover. I wasn't all that upset about it. I thought the effort at the very end of the game, when you needed 2 stops and 2 scores, I thought that left a lot to be desired, which was fairly disappointing. In fact, I think superiorly disappointing. What do you think, or what do you make, I guess, is the question, of how the Packers defense played in this game this past Sunday? Was it, hey, Joe Barry made enough adjustments, they're starting to make some strides, the positioning with the defensive backs was certainly a little bit better? Are they actually taking a step forward, or is this just a bad Jets offense?
It looked a little bit more physical to me. I like to say, I think everyone was flying around. I saw Ruby Ford, like, they would put him out there a little bit, and some of that had to do with Quay Walker not being for passing downs, which is kind of unfortunate, but I think there's more positives than negatives with this. I think the Jets offense is, it's not very good. Zach Wilson's not that great. However, they did shut down Garrett Wilson, who had been having some big games throughout this year. Pretty easy to do, rookie versus Jair Alexander. The running backs for them still did decent. They didn't do great. I don't remember what their final stats were, but I think they underperformed where they had been. At least I know Breece Hall had a really good game. I don't think Michael Carter did as much as he had previously done as a supplemental role. Rayshawn was flying around making plays like he's normally, like we've come to find out, some batted balls at the line. I think Dean Lowry got one. I think I saw Savage flying around in one play. He almost had a tip pick. The guy that's still frustrating me, man, is Devondre Campbell. Like that's the one where I think I noticed in the Bucs game, and he's just not what he used to be last year. He's just not the same guy he was last year. I don't know why or what's changed, but he's just not it. But overall, I liked what the offense, I liked what the defense did. I think there's definitely more to be desired. Like, that's for sure. Like, causing some more turnovers, being a little bit more aggressive towards the end of the game. Like you had mentioned, that was really just, wet noodle at that point. Like it kind of was, everything was in a decent shape with them all game, but you didn't see Joe Barry really have to switch all that much throughout the game until late, and it was like almost too late. So there's just a lot that I think that there's some positive elements that I can take away from it, but overall I don't think we've turned the page on what this defense needs to improve on and continue to get better. And they're still missing tackles, which sucks. I hate when the Packers defense or any aspect of the game, special teams can miss tackles, but yeah, holding Zach Wilson to 110 yards, 115 yards is great, but they still were able to pound the shit out of the ball.
I think there are some positives to take away. I will say something positive about this game. I thought there were a couple really nice performances from individuals defensively. I thought Rashawn Gary, despite having a toe issue, he played really well. I was very happy with what we saw from him. I think Jair Alexander had his best game of the season. He was just completely shut down Garrett Wilson, like you said. That was awesome to see. Eric Stokes, I thought, played decently. He did get cooked on that double move. That was unfortunate, but I thought he played pretty decently overall. And who had his best game of the year that we have been waiting on? You and I have been waiting for this to happen. I thought Adrian Amos had his best game so far. Now, in fairness as well, that bar is really low because he has really struggled so far, but he was making plays. He was being more aggressive. I liked what we saw out of Amos. I think that was a positive step for him. And we do have another point, too, from our guy David on the Game on Wisconsin YouTube comments, who says, hey, that Jets team also put up over 40 points against the Dolphins just a week prior. Now, I will add the caveat to that. That game really got out of hand late. It was a lot closer than that until the very end of the game, but I understand the general point. I think the defense was better. I still think there are some things that can be worked out. The Jets are not the most offensively talented team. I still don't know what to think about Zach Wilson. He has moments where I think, oh yeah, he can be a guy. And then you see his final stat line and you think, man, I mean, you could name your NFL backup and they could probably have put like Teddy Bridgewater easily could have had that stat line. In fact, that was like the ultimate Teddy Bridgewater stat line. Or like, go grab Josh Johnson and add him back to the Jets. I'm sure he's been there 4 times already. Like he could probably have done that. So he's an enigma for me, Zach Wilson is. They have some nice players. Breece Hall, I got to see his entire college career when he was at Iowa State. He's a Kansas kid. I thought he played really well. He's been great as a rookie. Michael Carter makes that a really impressive 1-2 young running back punch. Garrett Wilson was shut down, but I like him as a player. So they've got some pieces, and they're missing some of their really talented offensive linemen as well due to injury. Sucks that Mekhi Becton's not playing for them. But to get all around this, I think this was a much needed effort for the Packers, and I will give credit to Joe Barry that it felt like things were improved upon, and certain elements of this defense that have been missing were improved upon. Alexander playing in the slot more, following Wilson more, Douglas a little bit more on the outside. We've been begging for those things. That is good. I will happily take that. There's just still a few things I need to say, okay, we need to see this against a better team, or at the very least, we need to see it multiple weeks in a row before I start to say, okay, I think this defense is starting to come along. But I will be, as hard as I was the last couple of weeks, I will be positive about this and say, I think Barry made some adjustments, and I think this was a positive step for the defense, even if there is still a long way to go. And speaking of,
doesn't it kind of suck? Oh, no, I was just gonna say, doesn't it kind of suck though? Like you round it, it's like you don't really know. Like it's tough to tell if it actually is like improved upon or not. And like that's the frustrating thing. Is like just the way the game went. It's like it's really tough because like you could look at the statistically, like the backup quarterback stats that Zach Wilson threw out there. Like it's like, oh shit, they shut him down, didn't force a turnover. But then you see Breece Hall runs the snot of the ball, and like, well, damn, we really need to stop the run yet. We haven't done that yet. But the secondary, it's just there's so much more I think that they need to improve on. It's just, but you don't really know how the game would have gone differently if it would have been a normal time of possession, lack of turnovers, and field position switches.
And I think it's the kind of situation where you just don't give the benefit of the doubt at this point, given how poorly the defense has played. I mean, Wilson's stat line, 10 of 18, 110 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He was sacked twice, had a rating under 74, a QBR of about 31. Running the ball, the Jets did pretty well, had over 5 yards, nearly 5.5 yards an attempt, 179 total. I think it's getting better, but we're going to need to see this game on Sunday to really have any inclination, because you're right. We don't have enough proof from the first 5 games of the season to know, oh yeah, this defense is starting to turn a corner. And that brings us to this game with the Commanders, who we should note before anything else are going to be playing a backup quarterback in this game. It was initially reported by Ian Rappaport. It has made the rounds all over by now. Carson Wentz facing 4 to 6 weeks of recovery time, maybe an IR stint due to his fractured ring finger. I don't know how your 4th finger gets injured, but that sounds pretty darn painful. And then it was confirmed later on he did have the surgery to repair that injured finger. So it will be Taylor Heineke. Heineke played for the Commanders last year when they were just the football team and they lost to the Packers. I don't know, man. I just, part of me is saying the Packers should still win because I can't get it out of my head that they should still have more talent and they should be better coached, because as much as I like Ron Rivera as a person in the sport of football, I don't think that team is very good. Scott Turner's an all right offensive coordinator. Jack Del Rio is an awful defensive coordinator at this stage of his career. There's no denying that.
And a terrible person.
Well, yeah, he also, where were your whereabouts on January 6th? Anyway, beside that point, I just don't know what to make of this game, because it's the cognitive dissonance between, well, the Packers should have more talent, and, well, where the hell has it been this season? That's where I am. Heineke's the wild card here, because if he comes out and plays classic gunslinger backup and he's just launching bombs all over the field to Terry McLaurin and hitting Diami Brown or any of these other wide receivers that Washington has, okay, well, that's going to make things a whole lot more challenging. If he comes out in turtles, well, the Packers should still come out to win. I have no idea what to make of this game, to be honest with you, because backup quarterback, Packers are in a whole world of hurt right now. This could go any number of ways. And I was joking about it on Twitter on Monday, but I really don't know how to predict this game.
I honestly don't know, too. I was hoping you're going to push me in a direction. Taylor Heineke's Taylor Heineke's a cat. Like, he can play. Like, he can play in this league. He plays really with just reckless abandonment. I don't really think he's all that nervous of making mistakes. He mimics his game over Brett Favre, also not a great human being, as we've come to find out. But like, Taylor Heineke can, if Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones can beat the Packers with their teams, granted they might have a little bit better supporting cast in the run games, I don't see why Taylor Heineke can't do that. I think he's a decent quarterback. He can definitely play in this league. He's solid last year. He played 15 games, 16 games when Fitzpatrick got hurt in the first one. Like, I don't know how to predict it. I honestly was going while you were doing that. I was seeing what Chase Young's injury update is. I don't think he's going to be back for a couple weeks yet. So that would like maybe sway the tables, even if it happened that way from the ACL from last year. If he were to come back, like their front seven's not as nasty as it normally is from what I've been observing. But man, I just want to see, like, my expectations for this past week were just like, okay, get back to normal, which was just running the ball and establishing the run. And I don't know if the Washington football team, the Washington Commanders is the team to do that against. Like, like I said, their front seven's not great this year, but like generally I think the Packers have had a tough time moving the ball on the ground from one that I can remember. Maybe it was different last year, but there's just many games that I think that it's just Jonathan Allen's been disruptive up the middle, and all these other dudes they've had for a long time, Darren Payne, like I don't know what to expect. A lot of it I think is going to depend on the defense for the Washington Commanders, because offensively I think they have enough pieces to move the ball in the field. I would hope Joe Barry would be able to fool Taylor Heineke, and I also think that the receiving core for them is really solid, but I think the way that the Packers match up is just much, much better. They have good talent for the receivers there. You mentioned we say McLaurin, Dodson, Curtis Samuel is having a really good year for them too, but I think across the board we should be able to line up that way. So I think it's going to come down to the defense for the Commanders, and maybe just more or less like what we screw up on offense that plays into their hand.
My one quick defensive note for this one, because Washington's offense with Wentz is gross. Wentz in that game on Thursday night against the Bears threw for 99 yards on 22 attempts. Gag me with a spoon. That is freaking gross. How do you do that in this day and age? That's so bad. The step for the defense I would love to see is, does Jair Alexander shadow Terry McLaurin, or at least do something of a shadow on Terry McLaurin? Dotson missed this past game for Washington due to injury. I don't know if he's going to be able to go this Sunday. There's still a long way to go until Sunday. Maybe he gets cleared before then. If he goes, that changes the calculus, because he is having a really nice rookie season. If he doesn't, Curtis Samuel is playing well, but he's not exactly a world beater at wide receiver. Same thing goes for a couple of their other guys, whereas Terry McLaurin really can be a take over the game kind of receiver. That's what I'm hoping to see. Do we see an adjustment from week one when Justin Jefferson tore us up, and you say, all right, Jair, you're going to get the McLaurin assignment most of the time? He'd be hyped up for that. I would love to see that at least for part of the game. Also, as it's pointed out by our good pal Gil on the YouTube comments on Game On Wisconsin, he says the Commanders have already given up 23 sacks this year. That's tied for the most in the league with that vaunted offensive line of the Chicago Bears. Sounds like it could be a great opportunity for Rashawn Gary. Kenny Clark was pretty quiet against the Jets. Maybe it's a game for him to get re-energized a little bit. Dean Lowry had an awesome play at the beginning of the Jets game, disappeared after that. Preston Smith, I think he's played pretty well overall so far this season. So maybe that bad offensive line can help out as well. Although it should also be noted, Heineke is not as sackable as Wentz, but he also is probably going to take some pretty crazy chances. Yeah, Kingsley Enagbare, who looked very good, got his first career sack this week as well. Those guys should be able to have good games. So I'm a little less worried about the defense, even with the wild card at quarterback and Heineke. Offensively, I don't know, man. I just don't know what to say about this group. There should be points to be had in this game. Now, the offensive line is going to need a better game, because I still think Jonathan Allen's a really nice player up front. And even though they don't have Chase Young, which is a concern for them because he has missed a lot of time due to injury by now, Montez Sweat is playing really well for them coming off the edge. So that is a matchup that probably Jenkins is going to have to deal with a lot in this game, and probably a little for Bakhtiari as well if they do some overload stuff on that left side of the offensive line. How can you slow those guys down? Do you maybe counter that defensive front by going to more of the quick game, bubbles to Aaron Jones, quick stuff over the middle, slants, different concepts, whatever it might end up being? I think that is where the offensive success is going to emanate from in this game. Maybe Rodgers tries a bunch of deep balls that don't work. He's been so ineffective on the long stuff so far this year, but I think that offensive line play against the Washington front is really going to be what could swing this game for the Packers. And with that, while we're talking about what could swing the game one way or another, let's get to this week's significant to some, our early look ahead to the betting lines for this game. Packers versus Commanders in Landover, Maryland, at the absolute garbage heap dump that is FedEx Field. The line for this game right now, I'm not going to name names for the sports book, but there are a bunch of fans there, and they do enjoy a good duel, or so I've been told, Matt. The spread is the Packers on the road, favored by 5.5. The over-under has dipped a full point just today. I checked this out this morning. It was over under 41.5. It's already down to 40 and the hook for this game. So who you got? Packers minus 5.5 or Washington to get the upset or the underdog pick? And we lost Matt momentarily, but we'll get his pick here in just a moment before we get to the end of the show. Matt will log back on with us. So I'll give my pick first this week. I don't know how you go against picking Washington to cover the spread here. I know it's 5.5 points. Feels a little bit weird, but it also feels weird that the Packers are favored by that many, given how poorly things have been going over the last couple of weeks and going with this offense. We were on the right side of things last week in terms of saying the Jets will cover. Now, neither of us predicted the Jets were going to actually win this game. I'm going to go with the under, and I'm going to go with the Packers to win. I think I joked about it on Twitter earlier today as we get Matt back in here. I put it on Twitter. I said 19-18 Packers win this game. I'm going to stick with that. I don't think there's going to be a ton of points because I'm worried about this offense. I think the Washington defensive line is going to be difficult. I don't know what to make of Heineke on the other side, if he either goes Super Saiyan or if he maybe struggles because, well, he's a backup and backups are prone to that. Plus, he doesn't have great arm strength. 19-18 Packers. It's a gross score. It was a tough year in world history near the end of World War I, obviously. So maybe you take that into account too. Give me the Packers, but I have almost no confidence in any given score for this matchup. I do like the under, though. I am very worried about points in this game. I've
been dreading this pick all day. Like literally ever since, actually since yesterday. I was like, how am I don't even know what to expect here. Carson Wentz being out gives me more faith that the Packers should win this game. I'm still not overly confident. I mean, this is probably out of the 7 predictions we've given, this is definitely in the bottom 3 is like my confidence level from them. 19-18 is just a dirty number. There's no way I can go with that. I think I like the under. I like the Packers to cover actually in this game.
Whoa, little optimism tonight.
Small amount. We're going to go 23-17.
23-17. That would be a cover, and that would, by half a point, be the under as well. How about a little optimism to wrap up the show?
I almost went like 22-16, something real sick and twisted, but I'm going to go with some actual divisible by 7 or 3.
I'll stick with the gross number for this week with 19-18. Well, I'm glad one of us is a little more optimistic about this game. We'll obviously be getting ready for it all week long on Twitter. Matt can be found at Matt_FRA_. I'm on Twitter as well at BrendanDZW. Make sure you're following Game On Wisconsin on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, of course, on YouTube as well, and checking out all the other great podcasts and other writing and everything at GameOnWI.com. Matt, I'm hoping for the best. I don't know what to expect. I'm frankly more nervous than I thought I would have been going into this game to start this season. But hey, winning cures a lot. And maybe this is finally the week things break out. And hopefully we can have a little bit more of an upbeat show coming up next Monday.
It's been a dumb start to the NFL season. Stuff is just so bizarre. Like, it's just so crazy. And like, it's just any given Sunday. Like, I think you looked at the schedule throughout the year and you're like, this is the window of like opportunity. This is the window of like get stuff right. And it has been so many forks in the road. Not sure what to expect. Then they got to go. I mean, they got a tough sledding after this game. Buffalo, et cetera. But 1 week at a time, I guess. I don't know if they can't get it right this week offensively. I don't really know what to do because eventually LaFleur is going to have to go through some tough times. being, losing back-to-back games and just some adversity other than injury. And it seems like that's finally happening, because I can't remember as a more difficult time that he's been here, because everything else has been pretty simple going 13-3, besides some playoff losses. So yeah, it better be a dub this week. Otherwise it's going to be a somber conversation 7 days from now.
Yeah, things already don't feel all that great, but you can bet they will feel a whole lot worse if the Packers can't get it done against the Washington Commanders. We're hoping for the best. He's Matt Freilich. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We will talk to you live next Monday night on all the Game On Wisconsin social channels for the Final Dump. Don't forget the podcast comes out every Tuesday morning wherever you get your podcast as well. Until next time, this has been another edition of the Final Dump, brought to you as always by Game On Wisconsin.
Well, Wayne, I think this is one that Vince Lombardi and George Hallis would be proud of.
You could have given me the touchdown. Then it's hard to overturn. You know what I mean?
I understand.
That's a good effort, though, wasn't it? It's a pretty good effort.